Good evening. I'm going to call the Monday, November 14th, 2016 Planning Commission meeting to order. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. First item on the agenda tonight is the approval of the agenda. Do I hear any edits or change requests? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move for approve.
Second.
All in favor of approving the agenda?
Aye.
Aye. All right, next up is the approval of the minutes from the Monday, October 24th, 2016 meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review? And are there any edits proposed? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of the minutes of October 24, 2016 meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. All right, moving on to public hearings this evening. The one and only hearing is for Prestige Daycare. This is a request for site plan review on 3 acres of unplatted land within the 35-acre parcel of Metropolitan Airports Commission-owned property. Will the proponent please step forward to speak on this? Good evening. Will you please state your name and spell it for the record, please?
Yes, my name is John Fanning. I'm with Shingaby Builders. We're the developer and general contractor for the project. Just kind of some quick background. Again, we're requesting for a site plan review as it relates to the Prestige Preschool. Some background on Prestige. Prestige is a national daycare provider. We're actually the developer, general contractor, and owner for the facilities that they do in the Twin Cities area. This will be the third of between 8 and 12 that would be done throughout the Twin Cities. Right now there's one that's open in Brooklyn Park, another one in Apple Valley, and we also have one under construction in Maple Grove, Minnetonka, Eagan, and then this would be the sixth one, excuse me. As far as total locations for Prestige, they actually will have 30 locations by the end of 2020 is their plan. So we'll be between 8 and 12 in the Minneapolis area. As far as Prestige themselves, it's actually the gentleman that started, or the gentlemen that started Prestige Preschool are all Tutor Time execs. So it is a lot of history that goes along with the type of daycare and the child care that they do in the academy. As far as our location there, it's just a little over 11,000 square foot building on just about 1.3 acres of land. This is a ground lease that we're doing with MAC versus a purchase. Our preference would have been to purchase it, but because of MAC not knowing what the longevity of the whole Flying Cloud Airport expansion, if they'd ever need the land, that's why we do that's why they do ground leases on their property. So it is a 50-year ground lease with extensions. And so that will be our long-term relationship with MAC as far as what we're doing. As far as the facility itself, again, we're anticipating a capacity of about 178 kids, which is a typical capacity. It does have more space for that, but when you start to look at the teacher-to-student ratio in the classrooms and what they do, usually their maximum licensing that they did, that's what they did in Apple Valley and Brooklyn Park, was 178 kids. They typically operate about 150 kids. You know, and people always ask the question, why wouldn't you maximize your capacity? Well, they always want to have the ability for kids to move from, say, the 2-year-old to the 3-year-old, and they always want to leave room for that. So a typical operation is usually about 150 kids. So that kind of gives you an idea of what they're planning. Again, part of the reason for this site location, the interest in it, was the location, the demographic in the area, a lot of the traffic and the residential units in that area to support it, and not really having a lot of childcare options in that area. So that was a big reason for it as well. As far as the history, again, we've been looking at the site since 2014. Worked with MAC, started the discussions with them in late 2015, and then executed the ground lease in January 2016. So it's something that we've been looking at. We did look at some additional sites, had some conversations with the City of Eden Prairie, with the staff. Those sites didn't work out. This one came into play, and so we've been really working hand in hand with them throughout this entire process to obviously where we're sitting today. So if you have any questions in regards to the process or any questions related to the project, I'd be glad to answer that, along with Paul Schrader, who's with Westwood, who is our civil engineer related to the project.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any initial questions from the commission? All right, can we go to a planner's report, please?
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, as stated, the request before you this evening is for a site plan approval. There are not any variances or waivers that are being sought as a part of this application. The building materials, the setbacks, the parking requirements, the landscaping, all meet or exceed city code requirements. The project is recommended for approval by staff, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions from the commission? Okay. This is a public hearing. Would anyone like to come forward and speak for or against this project? No? Okay. Commissioner Wood.
I have one question. Just from a pilot standpoint, as I am a licensed pilot, what are the landscape lighting mitigation for coming in on that ILS, that runway 10R ILS for landing?
As far as the lighting, there was going to be minimal allowance of lighting. Obviously, we've been working with MAC, and we have certain FAA regulations that we have to work under, and so we actually did we have to go through a process, an approval process with them as well. The specifics I don't know, but that's something will be limited because of FAA.
Well, they have already vetted that. That hasn't been. That's not in the process now. They've already vetted it, and so this is the last
They haven't
step.
vetted it, if I remember correctly, and Paul, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we vetted it because we haven't gotten that far into the process, but that's something that they will have say in and will regulate.
Okay.
I have a question about traffic. Is there a reason why the driveway is off of that, I don't know what the name of that road is, across from the church parking lot driveway, but are the traffic counts on Mitchell so tight that we can't have the curb cut off of Mitchell with some kind of an offset to the driveway? It would be more convenient, it looks like, for this property.
Are you talking about the access to their parking lot off the Park Road?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
The spacing on Mitchell Road, we'd prefer to keep the spacing and not introduce another intersection in there. So we'd always plan to have that access shared with Grace Church and the park as the primary access for both uses.
Okay. I was thinking of the offset hours of operation between the daycare and the church, and probably not a lot of overlap conflict there in traffic, but I see your point. I'm all for safety of children, for sure. Just curious.
I have one thought about it, simply because that's an area where the residential portion down the hill from the area of land we're talking about happens to be one where my family and I live. And there is a lot of traffic on Mitchell coming up out of that neighborhood, because it's the best way to get up into more of the area of the city. There is nothing south or even east directly of those areas without coming up past Grace Church. And the second point I've already talked to staff about is that, and I don't have any recommendation or thought except that there's more traffic than you would normally think there would be in that location, because Grace Church itself over the years, especially I would say in the last 5 years, has substantially increased the amount of activity at the church on a daily basis. It's not just occasionally, it's becoming more and more frequent, not to the extent that they have to have police directing traffic as much, although they do have events that do get the police traffic control involved too. But my simple thought was to just kind of suggest that may be an item that the city will want to look at carefully once this development, if it goes forward, is in process, and if that ballpark road is the one that is used. I've just found myself watching the traffic myself up and down that stretch of road, not from the park, it's the rest of us, both from in the church use and from the neighborhood, creates some circumstances in which I think the traffic safety or traffic control could merit some further monitoring and maybe some change before we're done. But I don't have an opinion as to what that would work to be, because that's not my expertise, obviously. But I think it is something you might not otherwise know. But it seems as if Grace Church has become a very, very useful and popular location for activity on an ongoing basis. I mean, I can see it 2 or 3 times a week on a regular basis, sometimes more frequently than that. And there seems to be a difficulty with people realizing that they're both there. In other words, people coming up and down on the street kind of just don't think of the church as being that busy and go just right along and suddenly realize there are people coming out of the driveway. The other side of it is from the ballpark side. There is use, but many times the people in that ballpark area are not that. If there's some heavy activity during a certain period of time, and then people are gone for long periods of time. Or sometimes the traffic comes down from further in the east up on the higher part of the ball fields, comes down the back way into that area. So until they actually want to exit and leave, that's the way that seems to happen on a more normal basis. So that's just more information that probably you need, but
It's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
But there are no concerns from the city as far as traffic, as it stands.
No, we wouldn't have any concerns at all. I mean, the ideal situation, which is the way it is today, would be lined up. If it was offset at all, that would be more of a concern, particularly with a lot of turning movements and through traffic. So the intersections line up, but they also aren't the same width. So there's some inherent differences between the Grace Church entrance and the park entrance. Any other questions?
I wouldn't mind to just hear a few sentences maybe from the applicant on the site plan circulation. I'm assuming this is all pre-K, so are 100% of the children being dropped off by a parent? Or do you send a bus around the community to do any pickups of maybe some older pre-K students? I don't know if that's the case or not. I'm just wondering about the parking lot circulation. Are parents urged to park, apparently? There's no queuing space for drop-off, open the door, and have the toddler run in themselves. So does the parent have to park, get out, and escort their child inside, then go get back in their car? Or just tell me a little bit more about what happens in the morning and afternoon.
Yeah, that's correct. It's the majority of the enrollment is pre-K. There is a kindergarten program. Actually, if I remember correctly, they're licensed to teach up to, I think, 1st or 2nd grade. So there is some pickup. They do have a bus or a small van that they use to pick up from some of the schools, but the majority of it is parent drop-off. So they will come in, park, walk the children in, check them in, because there's an electronic check-in as well. From a security standpoint, and then they'll do the same for pickup as well.
Okay. So there's no need for a dedicated drop-off lane for the bus or anybody else to just
That's correct.
drop and go?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Any other comments? If none, I will entertain a motion.
Move to close the public hearing.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor to close the public hearing?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right.
And I would move to recommend approval of the site plan review on 3 acres of unplatted land within the 35-acre parcel of the Metropolitan Airport Commission-owned property based on the revised plans dated 10/24/16, prepared by Westwood Professional Services and received by the city and stamped dated 10/26/2016, and in the information included in the staff report dated November 9th, 2016.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it passes. Congratulations. It's a nice project, and it's definitely a need. So, and I'd say it's a compliment that there wasn't any questions about the design from this commission. So, good luck. Thank you. All right, that's the end of our public hearings this evening. We have a planner's report tonight.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, just an announcement that the November 28th Planning Commission meeting is canceled.
Everyone okay with that?
Happy Thanksgiving.
All right. Members' reports. Continuing business. New business. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to adjourn the meeting.
Second?
All those in favor to adjourn?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.